Hello and welcome to this episode of Scrutiny, my weekly researched deep dive into issues that matter to Goa and Goans. This is a well researched half an hour blog, so please bear with me because this will bring out the facts and figures and, as always, bring you clarity from clutter. The subject at hand today is about 56 villages in Goa that was sought to be urbanized, but that urbanization plan was withdrawn. But the question that we ask is, has it been really withdrawn permanently or only pushed back from public view? Goa has just witnessed what is being described as a major victory of people's pressure. The government has withdrawn the circular that sought to move forward the process of notifying these 56 villages as urban areas. Yes, please pause and can let this sink in. 56 villages were sought to be marked as urban areas. Anyway, this withdrawal happened. The opposition has claimed victory. Panchayats, activists, citizens who oppose the move feel vindicated. The immediate threat seems to have been stopped. But this withdrawal needs much deeper scrutiny than what has been done in the public space or in the media. This issue is not only about whether one circular has been withdrawn. The real question is whether the policy direction behind that circular has been withdrawn permanently, or will it suddenly creep back after the elections? Has this government abandoned the idea of urbanizing these villages, or has it merely stepped back because of the impending assembly elections? And that is the question. This distinction is very, very crucial because Goa's villages are not being urbanized only through this one notification under the Goa Land Revenue Code. They are being urbanized under a much larger planning and ecological process, as we have seen. Land use conversions, settlement expansion, amendments to the Town and Country Planning Act, conversion sanads, hill cutting permissions, private forest pressure, all of this, forest diversion, airport linked real estate which is coming up, infrastructure corridors, mega projects. By the time the government officially calls a village urban, the village has already been transformed on the ground. And we have seen this in multiple villages across both South and North Goa. And that is the central point of this scrutiny deep dive. A village, ladies and gentlemen, does not become urban only when a government issues a notification saying this is urban. A village becomes urban when its paddy fields are converted into settlement, when orchard land becomes settlement, when natural cover becomes settlement, when no development slopes are opened up, when hills are cut, when village roads are widened for project access, when water and power loads are created beyond local capacity, when the local economy shifts from village life to speculative real estate. Isn't this honestly what is happening in Goa? Therefore, the withdrawal of this 56 village circular is important, but it's not enough. The circular has been withdrawn for sure. The larger conversion machinery has been withdrawn for now. But unless that machinery is examined, Goa may celebrate this victory while losing the larger battle village by village, survey number by survey number, file by file. The first issue is the history of this proposal. This is not the first time that the government has moved in this direction. In January 2020, the government issued a notification under the Goa Land Revenue Code to classify 56 villages as urban areas. The official explanation was that these were already census towns under the 2011 census, and the notification was linked mainly to land revenue assessment. This was what was told. The government also argued that this did not automatically mean that these panchayats would be converted into municipalities. And the fact that this did not immediately change building regulations. This is what the government told us. But people were not convinced. Citizens understood that even if the immediate effect was presented as narrow and revenue related, the long term implications would be much wider. See, once an area is officially declared as urban, that classification can be used by other departments, other sections of the government. future governments, planners, developers, landowners to justify a different scale of development once the area is declared as urban. It can change how land is valued, how density is argued, how infrastructure is justified, how taxation is designed, and how objections by local people are dismissed. This public opposition in 2020 forced the government to withdraw the notification in February 2020 itself, just less than a month later. That was the first warning. 6 years later, in 2026, the same idea returned through a circular seeking panchayat views on implementing the 2020 notification. This is why the present withdrawal cannot be treated as an isolated event. If the proposal is withdrawn after public anger in 2020 and then again returns in 2026, it cannot be dismissed as a clerical misunderstanding. It reflects a continuing policy instinct. And this policy instinct is something that we must never forget. The government may have misread the public mood. It may have underestimated the activity of the Gram Sabhas, activists, opposition parties, and village bodies. Now, this mood may have been misread by the government. It may have also realized that the assembly elections were due by late 2026 or early 2027, and the issue could be electorally damaging. So the government firstly underestimated the mood of the people, then realized what the mood was. The election issue was also in the picture. But the fact that the proposal returned again means that the intent has not disappeared. And this is what we must never forget while we are celebrating this people's victory. This is where the opposition's celebration must also be tested. Because public pressure has worked, this withdrawal surely matters. But this is a victory in the immediate political sense. But if the opposition stops only at celebrating the withdrawal and does not demand a full audit of land conversion, hill cutting, forest diversion, private forest pressure, mega project approvals in and around these villages, then it is only dealing with the visible symptom and not the deeper disease. An audit of all activities around these villages that were sought to be classified as urban needs to be done immediately without any further delay. Now, the circular is only the visible face of the issue. The deeper issue, ladies and gentlemen, is the planning regime that made such a circular possible. To understand this planning regime, which is beyond the limits of this circular, we must go back to the regional plan and the weakening of Goa's land use discipline. Goa's regional plan, as we all know, was supposed to act as a broad land use constitution of the state. It was meant to decide, and as you all know again, where settlement could grow, where agriculture needed protection, where orchard land must remain, where natural cover had to be preserved, where slopes and hills could not be disturbed, where water bodies and ecological features had to be safeguarded, and where development should be regulated according to its carrying capacity. This is all that we know. This is all that should have happened. Goa has already fought major battles over its regional plan. RP 2001 was the earlier benchmark. Regional Plan 2011 became controversial and was scrapped after public agitation. Regional 2021, RP 2021 came later with the claim that it could incorporate a more participatory approach and correct the earlier excesses. It was meant to be and was actually a very good plan. During Manohar Parrikar's regime, the political understanding was that development could not casually bypass the regional plan and permissions had to conform to the operative planning network. And this is the framework under which everybody worked. That the test of RP 2021 and 2001 had to be passed. The problem is that this discipline has been gradually hollowed out. Instead of the regional plan controlling development, legal routes have increasingly allowed individual development pressures to modify this plan, as we have all seen. So this plan is no longer the controlling document. In fact, it is no longer almost a document at all in the way it has been manipulated. In too many cases, the plan becomes something that can be changed after an applicant wants a different land use. So that is the time when everything from color changing and suitcase based decisions started to be taken. Section 17.2 of the Goa Town and Country Planning Act was the first major example. In theory, 17.2 was the correction mechanism. If there was a genuine error in the regional plan, there had to be a way to correct it. If a settlement area was wrongly marked as orchard or an existing house was mistakenly shown as another land use category, a correction was made. No one can object to genuine correction. But what began as an error correction mechanism became much larger. Publicly available data and court related material indicate that hundreds of approvals were granted under Section 17.2. Effectively, approximately 26.54 lakh square meters of land was converted under that. The serious issue is not only about the area that's involved, it's about the nature of the conversions. These were not small conversions, they were not mapping mistakes. They included changes from paddy fields, natural cover, no development zones, and orchard areas into settlement. This cutting of Goa and destroying of Goa had already started happening, and that is the core of the urbanization story, not this circular. When paddy becomes settlement, the village changes. When orchard becomes settlement, the village changes. When natural cover becomes settlement, the village changes. When no development zones or no development slopes rather are opened up, the village changes. If this happens repeatedly across several villages, the land use character of these villages changes, even if the official governance remains a village panchayat. That is why the 56 village proposal must be connected to 17.2. It must also be connected to 39A because 17.2 has been now set aside by the court. The government may say that urban notification is only an administrative or a revenue classification. But if before that notification, large areas had already been converted into settlement, then the notification is not neutral. It becomes the administrative recognition of a transformation that has already been pushed through planning files under different acts. Now let us look at the High Court's concern. The High Court had actually expressed concern over the creation of a zone within a zone, because that captures this whole problem precisely. A regional plan has integrity only if its categories are respected. If an area is marked as an orchard, agriculture, or natural cover, or settlement, these categories must mean something. But if individual plots are repeatedly removed from the original category and converted into settlement, as it's happening all over Goa now, exceptions begin to eat the rule. The outer plan may remain only on paper, but the internal character changes and has changed. And then, of course, we deep dive into 39A, which has become the most recent contemporary major route for land use change. 39A allows alteration or modification of the regional plan and also ODP areas subject to public notice. Now, and of course, approvals by the Town and Country Planning Board. Now, the government can argue that this provision has safeguards. There is a notice, there is a process, the board considers objections. The law speaks of restrictions on eco-sensitive land and the overall character of the land. All of this looks very good in paper. But if each application is considered separately, every change can be made to look limited. One file may appear small, another may appear manageable, a third may be justified as localized. But when dozens and hundreds and lakhs of such changes are placed on one map, the overall character of that area may already have changed. And this is what common Goans must understand. This is the weakness of Goa's planning regime. It examines files individually while the damage happens cumulatively. And that is what has happened. Reports on 39A have indicated that applications seeking conversions of vast areas into settlement running into tens of lakhs of square meters. One set of figures placed the area sought for conversion as more than 68 lakh square meters, with more than 9 lakh square meters already changed to settlement. Perne and Bardes have emerged as major pressure points, with North Goa clearly at the center of this real estate push. Even these figures vary depending on the date of reporting and whether pending and approved applications are counted separately. But the direction is unmistakable. This pressure towards settlement expansion is not only evident, it's real, and we are feeling it. And this is where we need to question this government's urbanization agreement. Who made it urban in character? It was not the organic growth of the village. It was a result of your planning permissions and land use changes. Now let us look into the hidden part of this urbanization debate: forests, hills, and ecological pressure. The withdrawal of the 56 village circular should not make Goans believe that the urbanization process has stopped, because this is the hidden story. Between April 1, 2021 and March 31, 2025, Goa saw more than 280 hectares of forest land diverted for nearly 35 projects. I'm going to pause and repeat it again slowly, hear it again. Between April 1, 2021 and March 31st, 2025, in this 4 year period, Goa saw more than 280 hectares of forest land diverted for nearly 35 projects. These are not village level changes, these are not small changes. These include airport linked infrastructure, road widening, power transmission, substation work, railway double tracking, and so on and so forth. Is this all for Goans? Let us ask this. Is this really for Goans? The Kule Madgaon railway double tracking project alone accounted for 15 hectares of forest diversion. The highest forest diversion in this period came in 23-24, when more than 178 hectares were diverted in a single year. Look at this data: 178 hectares diverted in a single year. This data changes how this 56 village issue must be understood. The government may say that the circular was only about revenue classification, but when forest land is diverted, private forest is under pressure, hills are cut, no development slopes are converted, orchards and natural cover move into a settlement zone, and infrastructure corridors are pushed through ecologically sensitive areas, the village is already being prepared for an urban future and not a happy future. Urbanization is not about a municipality or a board. It begins when a forest edge becomes a project boundary. And as I said, when orchard, slopes, all these things become settlement. When a drainage line is altered, when a village road is widened, and I've spoken about all this, and this is happening in Goa's villages across everywhere. Now we come to the private forest issue. This is equally serious. In March 2025, the Supreme Court restrained the state from issuing further conversion sanads for 855 survey numbers. And these survey numbers were actually finally identified and demarcated as a private forest by the Thomas and Araujo committees. So I'll repeat that. In March 2025, Supreme Court restrained Goa from issuing conversion sanads for 855 survey numbers demarcated as private forests by the Thomas and Araujo committees. The total area covered by that protection was 8.64 lakh square kilometers. This is not some abstract legal dispute. A conversion sanad is often the crucial bridge between a green plot and a development project. Once the sanad comes, tree felling, site clearing, road access, retaining walls, construction pressures, all of this follow after this sanad clearance. That is why the Supreme Court's restraining order means so much. Now there is another layer that we must look into: hill cutting. Goa's hills, ladies and gentlemen, are not empty land. They hold water. They direct drainage. They protect slopes. They prevent erosion. They support tree cover. And they shape the ecological character of our villages. Section 17A of the TCP Act recognizes this or recognized this by requiring prior written permission before cutting hilly or sloping land or filling any low-lying land. The TCP's own procedure asks for contour plans, drainage plans, cutting and filing across sections, retaining wall design, landscape plans, and all of that. On paper, this is a safeguard. In practice, the real question is how many such permissions have been granted, where they were granted, and whether they overlap with the land converted under 17.2 and 39A. This is the data the government must show and publish village-wise. This is extremely important. Now, the key question is not whether every permission is technically legal. The key question is whether Goa is being altered cumulatively without a cumulative study. And this is what I keep on repeating again and again. Don't look at all of this through single files and single conversions and single projects. Put all of them on a village map. If you put all these conversions and all these planning decisions on a village map, you will see that villages have already started to disappear. And this exercise is very important, and Goans must understand it. That is why the withdrawn circular cannot be treated as end of the story. The government has withdrawn the Administrative Act. It has not withdrawn the Ecological and Cumulative Planning Acts. Now, the people of Goa should now make the right demands and the correct demands and the effective demands. And I'm going to read out these demands. Publish the full list of forest diversions since 2020. Publish every forest survey number where conversion sanat was sought or granted. Publish every 39A application and approval village wise. Publish every 17A hill cutting permission village wise. Publish whether the same land also received conversion from orchard, natural cover, no development slope, or paddy field to settlement. Publish whether those lands fall inside or near the 56 villages proposed to be classified as urban. Do this study. Without this data, people are only reacting to the final notification. They are not seeing the preparation that comes before that notification. Now, this is the real scrutiny question, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode. Did Goa stop urbanization by forcing a withdrawal of a circular, or is Goa still being urbanized through forest diversion, private forest pressure, hill cutting, settlement conversion, and so on and so forth? Now, this ecological and planning pressure should also be seen taluka by taluka, because the 56 village issue is spread across Perne, Bardes, Bicholi, Sattari, Tiswadi, Ponda, Salset, Murbugaon, Kepe, and Sange. These are not abstract names. These are real talukas. Each of these talukas is facing development pressure and different forms of development pressure. Perne is the clearest example because of the Mopa airport and the real estate boom around it. The airport did not bring in flights. It changed the psychology of the land. Land that was earlier seen through through a village lens, through an agricultural lens, through a local lens. Now, that land is now being seen as airport linked investment, plotted developments, villas, hospitality projects, second home speculation are all connected to this shift. The massive Lodha project in Karapur is also a part of this. Once large areas in Perne are converted into settlement, the argument or urban classification becomes easier. The state can say, look at the development, look at the density, look at the infrastructure demand. This is no longer rural. What is happening in Karapur should be looked at into a microcosm of the overall area. Talukas and areas adjoining talukas are all getting expanded, and the land use is being looked at from a different lens. Barde showed what the first phase of this transformation already looks like. Look at Asagaon, Shioli, Anjuna, Para, Arpora, Pilen, Salvadomun, Sukur, Kandoli, Kalangut. Are they villages anymore? This shows how village identity can remain in name where the land economy changes completely. Village names are still used in marketing brochures, but the land is increasingly being shaped by villas, apartments, boutique hotels, cafes, rental homes, second homes, and speculative real estate. Kalangut is a real warning. Whether or not Kalangut remains under panchayat governance in the formal sense, nobody can at any point of time describe Kalangut as a Goan village anymore. Commercialization, tourism, parking, traffic, sewage pressure, water demand, real estate has made Kalangut into a hardcore urban area. Kunkali offers a different example because it is now a municipal area, but still carries the memory and social structure of a former village space. It shows that a shift to an urban framework does not erase older identities but overlays them with new pressures and new administrative pressures. For many Goan villages, the fear is not merely a panchayat office, office will be replaced by a municipal council. The fear is that once an urban tag enters official language, the ability to resist density, commercialization, and infrastructure really weakens. And that is where we must understand where this fear comes from. Now, the government argues that notifying an area under the Land Revenue Code does not automatically convert it into a municipality. But a technically correct answer can hide the serious political consequences, and that is what we've been speaking about. Because a panchayat has a different governance culture. The Gram Sabha, despite its weaknesses, remains a direct forum where people can raise objections. The scale of planning is smaller. The vocabulary of development still has to answer to village roads, village drains, fields, orchards, communidad land, water bodies, traditional access, local carrying capacity. These things are still discussed in Gram Sabhas. Panchayat is not a guarantee of protection, but it is still a closer and a more direct democratic structure that we have. In an urban framework, that language changes. Higher density becomes easier to justify. Apartments become normal. People's voices can be controlled more effectively. Commercial use becomes normalized. Infrastructure expansion is used to justify more development. Roads can be widened because it's an urban area. Water and sewerage systems are demanded because the area is urban. All of these pressures come in. What has happened in Kalalgut, while it still remains a panchayat, will happen to more and more areas with the urban tag coming in if it happens. But already this pressure is being felt. Now, that is why this January 2022 classification under the Goa Land Revenue Code remains central to whatever we are discussing. And this is where we must stop, pause, and understand. Because the government withdrew the notification after public pressure, which also showed or proved that this was politically real. If the notification had no wider implications, there would have been no reason for this anxiety and no reason for this retreat. Therefore, we must understand this, that this withdrawal does not mean it cannot return after the elections in another form, with another explanation, and perhaps even after more land has been converted. Goa is heading towards assembly elections, probably December 2026 or early 2027. Now that is why this question becomes extremely important. Now, what the government should do, if it is serious about this withdrawal, it should formally state that it will not revive the 56 village urbanization proposal at all. It should release the full list of villages. It should release the 2020 notification, the February 2020 withdrawal, the May 2026 circular, and the latest withdrawal in one public file, and publish a legal note explaining the consequences of urban classification and whether this classification can be used under other laws or not. And that is a fear. But more importantly, it should face the people and tell them that this withdrawal is not temporary. The withdrawal has also been taken because the government realizes what the impact of this urbanization will do. Let there be some honesty, and let the opposition also show some honesty and demand this. Otherwise, this becomes only a lip service. Now, let us now come back to one big question. This testing of the opposition, because opposition also needs to be questioned here. They must be under watch. We must figure out whether all the demands that we have listed are the demands that the government is asked and the opposition pushes these demands, especially during election year. Will they scrap or amend 39A? Will they ever review Section 17.2 conversions and ensure that all those conversions under 17.2 are scrapped? Will they restore stronger regional plan protection and, as many of us say, work towards a fresh regional plan? Will they publish all the conversion data? Will they legislate a village protection network? If the opposition does not answer these questions, or at least demand answers, then it is only using this withdrawal as a political headline. But ultimately, is the opposition also willing to dismantle the conversion culture, or promise that if it comes to power, it will dismantle the conversion culture and not just stick to withdrawing one circular. Now, this is important. Now, the same applies to citizens and panchayats. The Gram Sabhas were cancelled because the circular was withdrawn. Why should Gram Sabhas become silent? Panchayats should still pass resolutions demanding full disclosure. They should insist that no urban classification should be imposed without any Gram Sabha approval. They should ask for village-wise lists under 17 to 39A, 17A. All of this should be asked by the panchayats as well. People must not allow the government to convert this public victory into a public sleep. This vigilance is very necessary, and this vigilance is extremely important for the future of Goa. If it is not done, then it will again be a repeat of why Goa's battles are often lost before people know that the battle has begun. By the time village sees the construction board, the land may already be converted. By the time the road is widened, the project may already be approved. By the time a hill is cut, the permission may already exist. By the time the notification says urban, the village may have already been urban under the planning records. This has been a long blog, and I really wish that Goans understand it, hear it again and again, look at the entire description, also get into Facebook where this is going to be detailed. All this is extremely important because we must understand that the urbanization of Goa's village has not been stopped, it has only been pushed back. And this is what is important. Question the conversion culture. Don't just celebrate the withdrawal of a notice. This is Ink Goa, and I'm Shujoy Gupta. Thank you very much for your patience, for hearing this long blog, and we hope this has explained some of the questions that you had. Keep following Ink Goa, subscribe to us, like us, and help us continue this journey of research, of inquiry, of bringing you deep journalism. Thank you.